people are so quick to debunk Nibiru, chemtrails, we're talking um, cults, other religions, you know, things like that. All these things that so many people believe, yet there's no evidence for. And yet they're so hung up and stuck on their own beliefs, their own religion or Bible or Quran or whatever. And while this doesn't debunk these things, it seems hard to me to accept that these things wouldn't, so readily believed in the past. The idea of the Bible, that people wouldn't have eaten up the events without being very critical about the truth of it. We can tell that there is no Nibiru. We can tell that chemtrails aren't this. We can tell that, drinking this kind of water isn't going to help you, and in fact, it may make you sick. And colloidal silver isn't going to cure everything. We have evidence. We can show that these things aren't this way, yet people accept them with the littlest bit of evidence. How many people still think Kennedy was shot by a second person, or that Elvis is alive? Though by this point he should be dead of old age, but people are so quick to jump nowadays. Even when we can easily show that these things are fake, debunked, or that the sources of these things is complete bullshit, people still quickly believe them. Yet, as I've said before, and people have said before, we're supposed to think that 2,000 years ago, people during the time of Jesus would have readily debunked him. That they would have debunked the Gospels, they would have debunked everyone, that they just would have completely wanted 100% truth to show that these events actually happened. Yet people believe on less things nowadays. People believe on the stupidest things, even in the face of evidence to the contrary. So how hard is it to accept that back in the past people could have been convinced on bad evidence, or that those people, the disciples and the apostles and whatnot, thought they saw something, thought that something happened, even convinced themselves that something happened, and nothing did. But these stories were, they wanted so hard for Jesus to be alive, so they created it in their own minds. People do this nowadays. People convince themselves of the stupidest things readily. Even large groups of people will convince themselves of something. And yet, these things don't happen. People believe hard enough, they'll believe anything. Especially when they have a stake in it. People are quick to create explanations of something. Well, this didn't work. Okay, maybe I was wrong. Oh, nope. Actually, actually, there's an easy explanation for why this is wrong. James Randi runs into this all the time with this $1 million challenge. People that, after they fail, admit maybe they didn't have the power, and then they figure out some explanation for why it failed. This is exactly what I would expect to see with the Bible and events in the past. Again, this does not debunk the Bible. This does not show that Jesus didn't exist or that he didn't do these miracles, but this just shows that, I don't see it any different. I don't see these events having something so miraculous or so different that it couldn't fall under the same category with the same types of beliefs. And I think this is what's important. People need to look at it critically, not just blindly accept it, or accept that, well, somehow people were more critical back then. You can think of a logical explanation that, come up in your mind, and there's no way people could have believed Jesus unless it happened. and then try using that same logic on some of the bullshit people believe nowadays. And you wouldn't accept it yourself. You're not going to accept that people actually were abducted by aliens, even though, while some of these people are faking it, many of them do genuinely believe they were. I once had a dream that if I was more inclined, I would have thought was an alien abduction. Practically gave me a heart attack. Couldn't sleep for the rest of the night. And, people, it's just how people dreamed. It's just how our minds work. So you can't, to me, you can't just, look at it and say there's no way people could have believed this if it wasn't true back then. But it doesn't fly nowadays. You can't use an argument on anything nowadays that people think. So, ask yourself, be willing to ask yourself, could people have believed this stuff even if it didn't happen? Because they still do it nowadays for less evidence. Comment below if you agree or disagree. I'm sure I'm going to get a few that do. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, please. That's part of why I do the videos, is to hear people's ideas and thoughts on what I say. Either way, have a good day.